The sleepless curse asterisk for 200 years. The alien princess did not sleep even for 1 second. She closed her eyes many times, but sleep never came. She drank the strongest sleeping drinks and listened to the softest music. She tried dream machines and deep mind control, but nothing worked, not even once. She was always awake, always tired, always alone. Her name was Princess Serana. She lived on the moon of Leora. Her people were peaceful and wise. They had strong minds and soft voices. They lived in high towers made of crystal and silver. Their world was full of light and calm, but Serana's world was darker. Mother the Queen hid the truth from others. She told the world her daughter was special and silent, but the truth was something else. Princess Serana was cursed. No one knew where the curse came from. No one knew how to stop it. Some believed it was a punishment from the old gods. Others said it was because of a broken promise made long ago. But the royal scrolls told a secret prophecy only. A being from a world of storms. Only a soul that walks with fire, only a heart filled with chaos and feeling, could break the curse and bring the night of peace. That being was called the Sleeper, and no one on Leora believed such a thing existed, because their people were calm and perfect. They did not cry, they did not laugh too loud, they did not feel strong emotions, and they did not dream only. One kind of creature in the galaxy still felt strong emotions. Only one kind of being still had wild hearts. Humans, but humans were banned from Leora. They were seen as dangerous and broken. They were called primitive and loud. They were never allowed near the palace until one day, the sky broke. A silver fire cut across the blue clouds. A small ship screamed through the air. It crashed in the red sands of the desert of wind. The guards went to see. They found smoke, they found metal, and they found a man. He was tall and hurt. His suit was torn. His skin was burned, but he was breathing. He looked up and smiled. Even when he was bleeding. His name was Jake Carter, and he was from Earth. They brought him in chains to the palace. He did not fight. He looked around with wide eyes. He saw lights and towers and flying ships. He saw creatures with bright skin and long eyes. He saw beauty and fear. And he saw her Princess Serana. She was sitting on her throne of glass. Her face was calm, but her eyes were tired. She looked at Jake and something inside her moved. For the first time in 200 years, her heartbeat changed. She felt something she did not know, a soft wave in her chest, like the beginning of sleep. The guards said he must be sent away. The council said he must be locked. The queen said he must be studied. But Serana stood up. Her voice was soft but strong. Leave us, she said. The room was silent. The air felt thick. Even the lights on the walls blinked for a second. The guards looked at each other. The queen frowned, but no one said a word. They all left the room slowly, one by one. Only Jake and Serana remained. She walked down the steps. Her silver dress moved like water. She stood in front of him and looked into his eyes. Your mind is loud, she said. Jake smiled. He did not understand her words, but he felt her sadness. He felt the weight in her heart. And he felt something else, a strange pull, like two waves meeting. He took a small step forward. Are you okay? He asked. She blinked slowly. Then she answered, I do not sleep. I have not slept for 200 years, and now you are here, and I feel something. A silence in the noise, a calm in the storm. Jake did not speak. He did not know what to say. He only nodded. The princess turned and walked toward her private chamber. Then she stopped and looked back. Come with me, she said. Jake followed her without thinking. Not knowing he was walking into something much bigger than dreams. Not knowing he had just become part of the prophecy. Not knowing that this sleepless curse was now his to break, and far above them, in the sky full of stars, something ancient had opened its eyes again. The sleeper had arrived. Asterisk. The room was dark and quiet. Walls of silver light softly moved like breathing glass. Princess Serana stood near the window and watched the stars in silence. Jake sat on a round cushion behind her, feeling lost but calm. He had never seen such a place, so clean, so silent, so strange. He wanted to ask questions about the palace, about the people, about her. But something told him to wait, to watch, to listen. Serana spoke without turning. You carry chaos inside. It moves like fire, it burns and yet it feels warm. Jake looked around, unsure if she was speaking to him or to herself. He touched the soft floor and felt it hum under his hand. He said he was just a man, an explorer. He had no chaos, no fire. She turned slowly and looked into his eyes. You feel pain, you feel joy, you feel fear. That is the chaos I speak of. My people lost those things long ago. Jake did not know what to say. He remembered the crash, the fire, the moment he thought he would die. And then waking up in this palace of light. Serana stepped closer. For 2 centuries I have not slept. My mind never rests, dreams never come. But when you entered this world, something changed. For one moment, I felt stillness. For one breath, I felt peace. Jake looked at her face. She looked tired but not weak. She looked strong but not cold. He asked if she wanted to sleep now. She closed her eyes and whispered, I want to dream. Outside the chamber, the queen watched from the hidden wall, her eyes sharp, her mind full of fear. She called the High Council and told them what she saw. The prophecy may be true, she said, but we must be careful. A human in the palace is danger, a human near the princess is risk. The council agreed. They called the head scientist, an old being with wires instead of hair and a voice like metal rain. Scan the human, they said. Study his brain. Find the truth. Jake was taken to the deep lab the next morning. He did not resist. He answered every question. He let them scan his thoughts. He let them test his blood. He joked with the machines. He smiled at the guards. But inside he felt like a prisoner. The head scientist looked at the results and frowned. He showed the council the waves, the patterns, the strange movement inside Jake's mind. When the princess came near, the waves changed. When she stepped away, the waves became wild again. His presence makes her calm. His emotions touch hers. He is the key, the scientist said. The queen walked alone to the royal garden. She touched the blue leaves and thought about the old story, about the great curse placed on her bloodline, about the cost of dreams. She whispered to the wind, I will not lose her. That night, the princess asked for Jake again. They sat on soft pillows in a room full of stars. The ceiling showed the galaxy, planets moving slowly above their heads. Jake told her stories from Earth, about the oceans, about the forests, about the sky filled with birds. Serana listened without blinking, her hands on her knees, her breath slow and deep. For the first time in her life, her body felt heavy, her eyelids pulled down like soft ropes. She almost fell asleep, but a sharp sound rang through the room. The royal bell. She opened her eyes quickly. Jake stood up as guards entered. The queen had made a choice. She would allow one test one night. Jake would stay in the princess's chamber until sunrise. If she slept, he could stay. If not, he would be sent back to the desert. Jake did not understand the weight of this offer. He only looked at Serana. She nodded once and the guards left. That night the chamber lights turned low. Soft music from the wind walls played gently. Serana lay on the floating bed. Jake sat beside her on the floor. He told her a story about his dog. As a boy, a simple memory, but full of laughter and sadness and love. Her eyes closed. Her lips moved without sound. Jake kept speaking, his voice soft, his words slow. The stars above turned slowly in the ceiling. Time moved like honey. The room became warm. She whispered his name once, like a breath, and then she slept. No machines made it happen. No science forced her brain. It was him. Just him. He looked at her face, peaceful still, and he smiled, but in the shadows not far from the palace, dark eyes watched. From a hidden ship, a message was sent across the void. The human has touched the dream. Prepare for the next move. And above them all, in the deep space between stars, something old and angry began to wake. The morning sun rose without sound over the crystal towers of Leora. Soft light filled the palace halls like golden rivers. But inside the princess's chamber, everything remained still. Jake sat near the edge of the floating bed, his back straight, his eyes wide. He had not slept. He had not moved. He only watched. Princess Serana lay in perfect silence, her eyes closed, her breath calm, her face soft like the early sky. For the first time in 200 years, she was asleep, and the moment was too beautiful to break. He whispered her name once, but she did not wake. He smiled and stood up slowly, his legs numb, his mind spinning. The chamber doors opened, and the queen entered with the head scientist and 2 guards. They stopped when they saw her sleeping. No words came from their lips, no steps echoed in the room. Even the guards forgot how to breathe. Jake stepped back and raised his hands as if he had touched something sacred. The queen looked at him with new eyes, not as a danger, not as a fool, but as something rare, something forgotten, something needed. The head scientist scanned her brain from a distance. The patterns were unlike anything he had ever seen. Soft waves moved like dreams. Real dreams, not created by machines, not shaped by science, but born from within. She is truly sleeping, he said with a voice like broken snow. And she is dreaming. The queen closed her eyes for a long moment, then opened them with silent fire. Let no one disturb her. Let no sound near her door. Let the world wait. Let the council know the sleeper has arrived. Jake followed the guards to a smaller room with blue walls and moving light. They offered him food. He ate slowly. His hands shook, his mind full of questions. Why him? Why now? What did his presence mean? What would come next? He looked at the stars outside the high window and remembered Earth, his small home, his dog, the laughter of his sister, the tears of his father. Everything felt far now, like a story from another life. Meanwhile, deep inside the palace, the council gathered in silence, their faces long and still, their eyes filled with fear and wonder. The human has touched the dream. One voice said, "This breaks all law." Another answered. The queen raised her hand, and they stopped. The law did not give her peace, the human did. The council asked for more proof. One night is not enough. They said a single dream is not safety. They demanded control tests, answers. The queen agreed with a nod, but she warned them, touch the human with force and you will wake something older than fear. Outside the palace, a message flew across space, carried on silent waves. A ship moved slowly toward Leora, its hull black, its purpose unknown. Back inside, the princess opened her eyes. She did not move. She did not speak. She simply stared at the sky above her bed. She had dreamed. She had seen colors she did not know. She had heard voices of people she had never met, and she had walked beside Jake through a forest of green light. Her heart felt full, her mind felt soft, her body felt alive. She whispered to herself, "I want more." She left her chamber without guards. She walked through quiet halls. She stepped into Jake's room without knocking. He stood when he saw her, his mouth open, but no words came. She sat down near him and looked into his eyes. "Tell me another story," she said. He laughed, not loud, just enough. She listened as he spoke about his first time seeing snow, how it was cold but beautiful, how he had slipped and fallen and laughed again, and again. She smiled, a small smile, but real. Then her face changed, her voice low and careful. "Do you want to stay here?" Jake looked at her, at the palace, at the stars, at his hands. "I do not know," he said. She nodded. "I think the curse was not about sleep, about being alone." They sat in silence, their thoughts like 2 rivers flowing side by side. In another part of the palace, a spy sent a secret signal, a warning. The human grows close to the princess. The bond is real. The curse is breaking. Action must be taken soon. That night, Jake was asked to return to her chamber. No tests, no guards, just presence. He told her stories again. One about his friend who played guitar, one about a bird that followed him home, one about how he once cried in the rain and felt clean after. Sarana listened, and her eyes closed once more. Sleep came faster this time, softer, deeper. Jake sat beside her and let the silence wrap around him. But far beyond the moon, in the dark corners of forgotten space, something was watching. Something was waiting, and now it had started to move. The curse had cracked, and so had the prison asterisk. The night was quiet inside the palace, but something unseen moved in the shadows. The stars above Leora burned softly, but one of them was not a star. It was a ship, cold and silent, drifting just beyond the reach of light. Its walls were black, Its engines made no sound. Its mission was clear inside the royal chamber. Princess Serana slept again. Her dreams flowed like rivers through a forgotten land. She walked barefoot through a forest of glass. She touched trees made of light. She saw faces in the sky. And at the center of it all, she saw Jake standing on a hill reaching out his hand. She smiled in her dream. Her heart felt warm, but then the sky turned dark. Clouds of red smoke covered the stars. The ground began to break under her feet, and a voice spoke without sound. A voice deep and full of hunger. You do not belong to him. You belong to me. Serana screamed in her sleep. Her body trembled. Jake rushed to her side and held her hand. He spoke softly. He told her it was only a dream. But her eyes stayed closed and tears fell down her cheeks. The queen entered with the head scientist and saw her daughter in pain. The machine showed waves. Inside her mind growing wild, not like dreams, more like storms. Jake looked at the queen. Something was in her dream, something dark, something old. The queen's face turned pale. She walked away without a word, back to the secret chamber where the scrolls were kept. She opened the oldest one, the one no one dared to read. It spoke of the first sleeper, a woman who dreamed too deeply and woke something that should have stayed asleep. Curse was never about no sleep. It was a prison, a wall to keep the dream world closed. And now that Serana had opened it again, the darkness was free to whisper. Jake was taken to the central lab again. Not for tests, but for answers. They showed him the energy waves coming from Serana's dreams. They matched a pattern from a long-forgotten signal, something found near the edge of the galaxy. A voice buried in static, calling out to any mind open enough to hear. Scientists told Jake that his presence was not just healing, it was unlocking, and now something was trying to come through her dreams into this world. Jake stood in silence. He remembered her tears. He remembered her smile. He could not let this happen. That night he went to her room again. She was awake but quiet. She looked at him with eyes full of fear and said only one word, help. Jake held her hand and told her a new story, not a memory, a made-up tale. A story about a girl who kept a monster asleep by singing to the stars. Serana closed her eyes slowly. The story wrapped around her mind like a soft blanket, and again she drifted into sleep. But this time Jake felt a pull, a strange feeling like falling without moving. The room blurred. His eyes closed without his will, and when he opened them again, he was standing in the dream beside her. Looked around and saw the forest of glass. He saw the sky with red smoke, and he saw her standing near the edge of a broken bridge. She turned to him with wide eyes. You are inside my dream. This is not supposed to be possible. Jake reached for her hand. Then the sky cracked open. A dark shape began to form above them, not a monster with teeth, not a beast with claws, but a shadow with eyes like mirrors, eyes that showed every fear, every regret, every sorrow. The voice returned. He does not belong here. He will break you. He will leave you. Serana trembled. Jake stepped in front of her. He shouted into the sky, you cannot have her. You are not real. You are only fear. The shadow laughed, a sound like glass breaking inside the soul. Then something bright appeared above them, a memory, a moment. Serana as a child, laughing with her mother, safe, loved. The shadow screamed. It hated light. It hated joy. Jake turned to Serana. Think of something happy, something pure. She closed her eyes and remembered the first time she saw Jake smile. The shadow began to shrink, its eyes cracked, its form faded. Then Jake felt a sharp pain in his chest. He looked down and saw nothing, but he felt something had been taken, something important. He fell to his knees. Serana ran to him. He smiled again. You are free. Now they both woke up at the same moment. Gasping, sweating, alive, the queen burst into the room. She saw them both breathing hard, but Serana looked stronger, brighter, awake. Jake stood slowly, his body weak, his mind full. Outside the palace, a figure in black armor watched through a spy lens. He sent a message back to the dark ship. The dream gate is open. The human has entered. The final phase begins now. The sky above Leora was clear, but the air felt heavy inside. The palace. The queen stood before the council without fear. She told them the truth. The dream world had opened, the ancient whispers had returned, and the human had walked inside a place. No alien had ever touched. The council spoke with slow voices and cold faces. They feared what they could not control. They feared the dream. They feared Jake. One of them asked if the human had brought the danger. Another said the human might be the only way to stop it. The queen raised her hand and silenced them all. She told them the old story again, the one hidden from the public. The curse was never a punishment. It was protection. Princess Serana was not cursed to suffer. She was chosen to guard the door, a door that must never open. And now, because of her bond with Jake, the door had opened. A little Jake sat alone in a white chamber. The walls glowed with soft light. He looked at his hands and felt different. Not stronger, not smarter, but connected. He remembered the dream, the shadow, the pain. He felt something missing, like a thread had been pulled from his heart. The head scientist entered with 2 guards. He asked Jake to follow. He did not ask why. They took him to the deep vault beneath the palace, a place even the council rarely entered. There, he saw machines older than memory, screens filled with strange symbols, and in the center of the room a floating crystal sphere. The scientist told Jake that long ago their people tried to fight the dream world with technology. They failed. Then they tried to hide it with silence. They failed again. So they locked the door with something they did not understand: emotion. They removed it from themselves. They became calm, empty, still. And the door stayed closed. But Serana was born different. She felt things, she dreamed things, and the dream world saw her. Jake listened. He asked why he was part of this now. The scientist pointed to the crystal. It glowed brighter when Jake stepped near. Only you have the right mind. You feel everything. You carry joy and sorrow at the same time. You are the key. Jake stepped back. He said he was not special. He was just a man who loved stories, a man who crashed his ship in the wrong sky. The scientist shook his head. Or maybe in the right one. Meanwhile, Serana walked through the garden of light. She felt the wind like a song. She touched the flowers with careful fingers. She thought about Jake, his voice, his stories, his pain. She felt his fear. Not because he told her, but because it lived in her now. They were connected by something older than time. Not love, not magic, something deeper, something real. She returned to the chamber and found Jake sitting alone. He looked at her and smiled, but his eyes were heavy. She sat beside him. She said nothing. He leaned on her shoulder and closed his eyes. They stayed like that until the queen entered. Her steps soft, her voice softer. The council has decided to send you home. Jake looked up slowly. Serana stood quickly. No one spoke. The queen explained, your presence is powerful, too powerful. It shakes the walls between worlds. Some fear the dream will break into the real. Jake asked if leaving would close the door. The queen said nothing. Serana stepped forward. If he leaves, I will follow. The queen stared at her daughter. She saw the fire in her eyes. She saw the old blood, the dream blood. The queen turned away. You have until sunrise. That night, Serana and Jake sat under the sky. No roof above, no walls around, just stars and silence. Jake asked what would happen if the dream won. Serana said the world would fall into sleep without end, a sleep with no waking, a dream with no light. He asked what would happen if they fought it. She said the world might burn, or it might heal. He looked at her and touched her hand. I do not want to leave. She nodded. Then stay. But before they could speak again, a sound broke the air, a warning bell, not from the palace. From the sky, a dark ship had entered orbit. No signal, no light, no request. The queen called the guards. The scientists checked the sky maps. Serana grabbed Jake's hand. The ship was not from Leora. It was not from any known place. It was from the dream. It had no pilot, only purpose: to pull the gate wide open, to bring the shadow into the waking world. Jake looked at the ship and felt the same pain in his chest. The missing thread, it was calling him. Queen turned to him with calm fear. You are the key, and now they want you. The black ship floated above Leora. Like a wound in the sky, it made no sound, it cast no shadow, but everyone could feel it. Even the trees bent slightly toward the ground. Even the birds stopped singing. Even the wind held its breath inside the palace. The queen stood still with her Eyes on the sky. The council shouted behind her, but she did not hear them. Old fears returned from deep sleep. Old mistakes whispered her name. In the chamber of glass, Princess Serana held Jake's hand without a word. They both felt it. The pull. Pressure. The cold calling. Jake looked into her eyes and saw more than fear. He saw memory. He saw fire. He saw the same dream he had entered. The same darkness waiting just behind her eyes. He asked if she could feel it too. She said it never really. Left. The curse was never broken. It was only changed. It was no longer hers alone. It now lived inside both of them. Queen entered with heavy steps, her voice quiet but strong. The ship is not a weapon. It is a door. It is here to finish what your dream began. Jake asked what they could do. He was not a soldier, not a hero. He was just a man who told stories and fell from the sky. The Queen stepped closer. You are not here to fight. You are here to decide. If you run, the gate will open. If you stay, the gate may still open, but with you inside, it may not survive. Jake looked at Serana. She nodded once. He turned back to the Queen. Then tell me what I must do. In the deep vault beneath the palace, the head scientist showed him a device. It was small, round, silver, not made to destroy, made to connect. He explained that this was a dream anchor, built long ago for minds that could not return. It would hold him inside the dream, fully. No way back until the mission ended. Jake held the device. It felt warm. It felt alive. He asked what would happen if he failed. The scientist said nothing. Serana stepped forward. If you go in, I go with you. Jake shook his head. You are the gate. You must stay and hold it closed. If I fail, you must be the one who ends it. She did not want to let go, but she knew he was right. They stood together under the tower, the stars watching like silent eyes, the wind whispering secrets they could not hear. Jake looked at her one last time. If I do not return, keep telling stories. She smiled through tears. Only if they end well. He placed the device on his head. Lights blinked. His body dropped, but his mind did not fall. He stood again in the forest of glass. Only now the trees were burning. The sky was bleeding. The shadows were alive. He walked forward, each step pulling pain from his chest. The missing thread now glowing like fire in the air. Ahead he followed it through the ruins of dreams, past broken memories, past lost hopes. Saw a version of Serana crying under a black tree. He saw himself trapped inside a mirror, shouting for help. He walked past it all, until he reached the hill from his first dream, and there stood the shadow. It had grown. It had shaped now hands, a mouth, eyes that showed every fear Jake ever had. Shadow spoke without voice. You do not belong. You do not matter. You cannot stop me. Jake stepped forward. He thought of his dog. He thought of his sister's laughter. He thought of Serana's hand in his own. He said nothing, but his silence burned brighter. Then fire. The shadow reached for him, but the thread inside Jake burst into light, a memory of love, of fear, of courage. The shadow screamed, not in pain, in anger. You are not strong. You are only human. Jake smiled. Exactly. He stepped into the shadow. Dream cracked like ice. The sky exploded, and everything turned white in the waking world. Serana fell to her knees. The dream anchor shattered in her hands. The ship in the sky began to break apart, light pouring from every crack. The Queen shouted to close the gates. The council ran for shelter. The world held its breath, then silence, then light. Then Jake opened his eyes. He was on the ground, alive, shaking, breathing. Serana rushed to him and held him tight. He whispered into her ear, I saw the end. It was beautiful above them. The black ship was gone. The sky was blue. The dream was quiet. The curse was broken. But far away in the dark corner of the galaxy, a small flicker remained, a single whisper left behind in the silence. Waiting, watching, remembering. The stars above Leora were quiet, but not asleep. The dream had ended, but something still moved in the silence. A whisper not yet spoken, a memory not yet erased. A door not yet locked. Jake sat by the garden pond with his feet in the water. The sky was clear, the world was calm, but his heart was gnawed. Remembered everything, the light, the shadow, the fire inside the dream. He remembered the face of fear and the voice of doubt. He remembered walking through his own mind and finding strength in. Pain Princess Serana sat beside him with a small flower in her hand. She looked at him with soft eyes. She saw the weight he carried. She saw the quiet war still burning behind his smile. They had won, but not fully. They had broken the curse, but not. The queen entered the garden without guards. She walked slowly, her hands behind her back. Her voice like calm rain. A signal came this morning from deep space. It was weak, but clear. It carried one word: return. Jake stood without speaking. Already knew the dream world was not dead. It had simply pulled back. Serana stood with him. We fight together this time, she said without fear. The queen nodded. The council agrees. The dream must end where it began, inside the gate itself. The head scientist showed them a new anchor built from the remains of the old one. Stronger, smarter, connected to both minds. He warned them. This was not a path to sleep. This was a path to decision. One dream must rise, one must fall. Jake looked at Serana. She touched his hand, and they both entered the gate together. The world around them vanished. The stars fell. The wind stopped. They stood again in the dream. But this time it was not forest or fire. It was a sea, dark and wide, with no land in sight. The water moved like breath, waves soft and heavy. The sky above was full of broken moons. In the middle of the sea stood a tower made of shadow. Its walls shifted, its shape changed. Its top reached far beyond the clouds. Jake and Serana walked across the water. Each step made ripples. Each ripple showed a memory. They saw Serana as a child crying alone. They saw Jake falling from the sky again and again. They saw love and loss and fear and light. The tower opened when they reached the base. A mouth without lips. A door without walls. Inside was the heart of the dream, a sphere of smoke with a voice like every nightmare at once. You dare return. It said you broke nothing. You delayed the storm. You are only sparks in a sea of ash. Serana stepped forward. We are not sparks. We are fire. Jake placed the anchor on the ground. It glowed red, then gold, then white. The dream screamed. It poured shadows from every wall. It showed monsters from forgotten fears. It tried to drown them in sorrow, but they did not break. Jake held a memory of Earth, a sunset with his sister, a song from an old radio, the warmth of a fire on a cold night. Serana held a dream of peace, a world without silence, a sky with true stars, a voice that told her she was never alone. Their minds joined. The anchor shined brighter. The sphere cracked. It screamed again. But this time in fear. The dream is not your prison. Serana shouted. The dream is your mirror. Jake added in. Now we see you. They stepped into the sphere, hand in hand. No fear, no doubt. Dream shattered. The sea turned to light. The tower vanished. The sky closed its wounds, and then silence in the waking world. The palace lights blinked once, then twice, then glowed steady. The council waited in the hall with tight breath. The queen stood still near the gate chamber. Then the door opened. Jake walked out first, then Serana. Both tired, both whole. The head scientist dropped his tools and smiled for the first time in a century. The queen stepped forward and kissed her daughter's forehead. You ended it, she said. Serana looked at Jake. No, we changed it. The dream was not a curse. It was a call for connection, a call for healing. A call for something only a human heart could answer. Weeks passed, then months. The world of Leora began to change. People started to feel again, to laugh, to cry, to hope. The sky was still blue, but now it had depth. Jake stood by his repaired ship with a bag in his hand. The queen offered him a place in the council. Serana offered him a place by her side. He smiled. He looked at the stars. Then he looked at Harry. Will come back, he said. Then he left back to Earth. Back to his people, back to tell the story not of war, not of power, but of a princess who could not sleep until one man walked into her dream.